Welcome to the Wealth Acceleration Podcast with your host, wealth coach Wade Reed.
Hey, what's up, Money Masters? It's Wade Reed here for another episode of the Wealth Acceleration Podcast. And today I'm going to share with you some experiences I've had in the last few weeks in my industry, doing some industry-specific training, spending time with my peers who study wealth, who help clients become wealthy, and who deal with the difficulties that everyone is dealing with in America regarding building wealth and planning for a future that they want to live into, whether they call that retirement or simply living retired today and eventually not having to work in the future. I think that's what most of you want, right? I know I want that. I want to be able to live a life today that I enjoy, but I also want the opportunity to not have to work if I don't want to. I want to have the resources available in my life to be able to stop the day-to-day active work that's required, but instead to do it fully by choice. And I think you want that too. So let me share with you some interesting insights that I've gained. And it's going to be a little bit more casual today, a little bit free flow. I've got some notes that I might be pulling up in front of me. And I want to tell some stories and share some experiences. So hopefully you enjoy this a little bit different format for today's episode. So here's a dilemma, like a conundrum that we're dealing with. And it kind of goes back to some of the prior episodes on retirement plans. This is still on my mind. So I was in New Jersey for a couple of days. I flew out there. There's great expense when you travel across the country, and it's important to me to gather information from the best resources. So I went and spent a couple of days with my peers in New Jersey. Some of the best, well-versed people, a guy named Dave Mozica, a guy named Vince Dodona, a good friend of mine and former colleague and wealth enthusiast, Garrett Gunderson, was there speaking. Got to interact with some of these great minds again. And the main thing that came up was the fact that America is in trouble. We as Americans have gotten really lazy. We've gotten really into a mindset of, I think, expectation. And I have some observations that I'm just going to be downloading to you guys. So I'm 43 years old, just had my birthday. I've been married for 21 years. I've got 6 children. My oldest is 19, my youngest is 8. They're about 2 years apart. So I'm doing life for real. A lot of people ask me that I've had as clients, how in the world do you have such a big family? And I say, well, how in the world do you have such a big business? In reality, there's so many crossovers into how businesses are run and how you're a leader to team members. Same thing happens in personal life as a family leader, as a father, as a mother. And as a married couple, we're business partners. And as business partners, we have responsibility to have interaction together that's healthy. We need to have good communication. We need to have regular rhythms of meeting times, just like in business. If you have partners or if you have people you're accountable to, team members below you that are reporting back to you about their success and troubles that they're dealing with and helping you run your business, these principles are so important. Accountability and in order to make progress, and a vision is so important for our future. And I think we overlook that in our personal lives too often. So one of my observations is this, that in the absence of a clear purpose in our lives, we often succumb to other people's purposes. And those purposes are often influenced upon us through advertising, through quote unquote influencers who tell us their stories. And in fact, I'm one of those in a way, an influencer in your life who's helping you have a positive frame of mind regarding money. But we often get sucked into the what if scenarios of other people's lives, lifestyles of the rich and famous. We're so curious about how others have such big wealth and we don't, and what it would be like to be like them. And then we try to live that lifestyle, but we do so with debt too often. So one of my observations is one of the purposes we have in life is to live an enjoyable life. But in the absence of clarity of the day-to-day responsibilities we have, of how to manage our resources effectively, we often do that with debt. And then what's interesting about debt is we love to hate on debt. I want to get out of debt. I'm so sick of being in debt. I hear that so often, guys. And maybe you're a part of that group who's got some debt, some credit cards, some student loans, some a mortgage. You've got cars. You've got maybe personal loans. And what I have found is that those payments, those obligations that we've placed upon ourselves actually give us purpose. They give us a reason to go to work. And this goes back historically to the times of subsistence farming. We used to be in a world where we lived hand to mouth. We only ate that which we produced off our own land. We planted orchards, we planted wheat, we planted other crops that would sustain us, potatoes. We would put some of that in a cellar and let it sustain us through the winters. We might have animals that we would feed off, either by hunting or by raising those animals, cattle, goats, whatever, to have meat to survive on over the winter seasons. And then we'd get back into the growth seasons of spring, summer, and fall, harvest season. And then we would enjoy the harvest, different times of year, different crops come about. And we're just built, basically, again, this is an observation of mine that I think is pretty accurate. We're built to live hand to mouth for the most part. We're built to live in a mode of somewhat like the thermostat on our wall that keeps our house at a certain temperature. We're kind of living that way financially. If we have too much income that we're not used to, more than we're used to, more than we're programmed to have based on our upbringing, then we tend to spend it down and use it up. If we have too little, then we tend to go do extra things. We try to find extra work. And what that does is kind of keeps us in this homeostasis, this state of being in about the same place always. And it requires some significant retraining of ourselves to do this, to overcome that thermostat mentality, this kind of ceilings and floors that we have in our lives financially. So what we see happening statistically in the United States is less than 5%, more like 2 to 3% of our income is being saved. And that's it. And it's kind of abysmal. It's kind of scary. It's kind of worrisome for me as a financial coach, as an advisor, as someone who's been 20 years working in the personal finance space, seeing people live in a very difficult way, paycheck to paycheck, wanting and hoping that they can have a better life for themselves, and missing out on some of the core understanding about how money works and the responsibility we have to it, to see ourselves as a steward versus as an owner. That's one of my favorite things that I've learned over the years, is if we can put ourselves in that frame of mind as a steward or a manager over resources, that none of it is actually ours, but instead we are responsible for it for the benefit of our family, for not only our lives, but our future generations. And that if we have a godly view of life, that God has provided all that we have. This world was made for us, and we were invited to be creators and to be innovators and to seek ways of turning the raw materials of this world into interesting things. Like, we're really managers. And if we can see ourselves in that mindset, when we're more likely to be in a space of savings, because savings creates opportunity for our future. Now, why are we doing only 2 to 3%? Other countries like Japan has had a 15 to 20% savings rate. Other less developed countries have a higher savings rate. Why might that be? Because they don't have social safety nets. This is another observation I've had over the years. Social safety nets in the United States, such as food stamps, Medicaid, charitable hospital situations, where if you can't pay your bills, there's often donations given to hospitals where they can cover your bills for you or a portion of it. We have insurances. We're so blessed and almost spoiled by a variety of insurance products that make it easier for us to handle the risks, that we don't withhold cash for our own needs. We often don't even have enough for our deductibles on our insurance policies. We often think that they're necessary evils. So as we're talking about these things at this conference, one of the things that came to mind that is naturally within us is this need for instant gratification. And that's one of the reasons why we live hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, is we just feel like if we have money, we should spend it. And that's a function of not having a clear purpose for our lives. If we have a bigger purpose, and for me, having a family has created that bigger purpose. Being married and having children and feeling the responsibility to provide for them and protect them and provide for a future for my wife. She's chosen to be a stay-at-home mom. We've made it possible for that to happen based on the choices we made. Not everyone chooses that, and that's okay. But I have found that family is perhaps the best purpose in life, if you are in a position to be able to do so. It gives us motive. It helps us be successful. It helps us strive and thrive in our future. And yet, oftentimes we still live paycheck to paycheck in a family dynamic. We're trying to just get by. So we've got to find some hacks. We've got to find some systems that help overcome the systems in our life, the automatic neurological systems in our bodies that cause us to seek instant gratification. Well, here's some facts. We have learned from statistical analysis that somewhere between 4 and 10,000 advertisements pass before our eyes every day, from billboards to magazines to audio programs we listen to, the swiping on our Instagram or YouTube or TikTok, the searches we do on our web browsers, constantly full of ads. The web pages we land on are constantly filled with ads that encourage us to go spend our money on things. And Amazon, for example, found this out very early on in their business model, the one-click purchase, instant gratification. Man, we are so addicted to buying things, even stuff we don't need, just because it gives us that little dopamine hit of gratification that we've done something with our resources. We've bought something new. We're going to get to open a package. It's like our birthday every day with Amazon. So with all this in mind, statistics also tell us about 64% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. And of those making 100,000 or more, at least 40% of those are living paycheck to paycheck. That means we're not saving much. And so what do? We call this lifestyle creep, this cycle of when we have more income, we then expend it to match that new income exponentially. A lot of people start out at $20,000 a year in their early years, 18 to 25 years old, very, very low income. That's where I was. And then our incomes increase substantially based on the skills we develop and the value we create for our employers or the businesses that we set up, the customers that pay us. And we end up in hundreds of thousands of dollars of potential income if we follow the pay increases that are pretty common, 3% annual cost of living increases. We end up having an exponential increase to our income, but we often spend it all. So what do we do about that? You've heard the phrase, save first, save first, save first. I've heard that too. All my life I heard save first. And I've told you guys the story of how when I was 3, my parents gave me a bank that had spend, save, and give. And I learned the skill of separating my money into different purposes. One of those was short-term savings, which was just spending. And one of those was longer-term savings, which was for future missionary service that I did, for college, for vehicle, for wedding, for bigger things in the future. So there's delayed spending for future things that might be short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And that long-term thing is retirement. This thing that's a brand new thing I talked about in my last podcast, the 87 is the new 65. We weren't really built to retire. Retirement happens when our bodies wear out and we're no longer capable of accomplishing things, and our families would take care of us back in the day. Now we retire at 65 to 67. We feel worn out mentally in our work lives because we've really often not had enough purpose day to day, enjoyment of our lives day to day. We keep thinking one day, someday. And so we don't have enough clarity of what our future can look like. And then we retire, and often if we don't have a clear enough purpose, we end up passing away early. We get sick. It's frustrating, guys. And so I kind of paint this picture because this was the conversation. We had several hundred of us who are financial advisors and coaches talking about these things, about how do we overcome this. And this guy, Dave Mozica, who was a co-founder with Vince Dodona of this software called Currents is in currency. They did some research. Dave in particular did a lot of research over about 10 to 15 years with his clients where he found a hack. And I found similarly, but I didn't have quite the same research. And so it was fascinating when I heard him speak about this. This idea in my Systemized podcast a few episodes ago. You remember my system is organize, systemize, optimize, maximize. That's being awesome with money, that acronym, awesome. The second part is systemize. And in my systemized conversation with clients, I talk about having a wealth capture / clearing account. And when I met Dave and he talked about that same construct, but a specific technology that would help automate some of that and gamify it, I was just intrigued. And so as we're having this conversation, he's telling me that his data shows that those who set up an intermediary account between their income and their expenses move from between 2 to 5% of annual savings to as much as 35% of your income being saved automatically, simply by overcoming this lifestyle creep habit that we have for instant gratification. And what it literally looks like is imagine your income, your W-2 or business income passes into your life in the form of a paycheck or a distribution of profit that's automatic. And you send it, instead of going to your personal checking account, which feels like cash in your pocket, which feels like, oh, I can spend it all. It goes first through a savings vehicle, a separate account that's never to have bills paid out of it. And in all of the income going there, we then set ourselves up on a personal salary, an average salary from our savings account to our personal operating account, our checking account that pays bills. And we simply look at our average lifestyle. You have to do a little bit of sleuthing on this. Maybe 2 to 3 months worth of your living expenses have to be looked at, up to a year if you have enough data, and look at the average of your spending month to month. And that's what you set up as a baseline, as a quote unquote salary from your savings account to your checking account. And in doing that, as you maintain a similar lifestyle this year, next year, the following year, and as you have increases to your income, all those increases to your income get captured automatically in this separate account. And then me included, Dave has tons of anecdotal evidence and actual statistical analysis on this. And I have anecdotal evidence of this that I haven't run particular statistical analysis, but the main conversation, the main testimonial, so to speak, is that, Wade, Dave, I have more money in my account than I've ever seen before. How did this get here? Where did it come from? And it's really exciting for people to start to see their bank account balance increase and have more cash available to make decisions with than they've ever thought possible, simply by automating the system. Now, we can add technology on top of this. This Currents technology is something I use with my clients. All my clients get to have access to this for free. And it's making us more aware together of what the inflows and outflows are. And when there's certain deviations, when maybe you're spending more than your average, and we can make adjustments to the cash flow. And as we get that dialed in, you don't have to budget so much. Like the day-to-day tracking of everything isn't as important once we get the average figured out and we live within those means that go to our checking account. So this was fascinating to me. A quote that I want to share with you from him goes like this. He said, "The best long-term plan is a series of tightly organized short-term plans." I'm going to repeat that. The best long-term plan. Think about retirement. Think about, paying off your house or whatever your long-term current thinking is. If your plan is to have those things done, life is so changing. All the time it's changing. Our circumstance change. I have clients who have lost jobs who are highly paid employees places. I have people who have had to shut down their businesses due to injury or sickness. I've had people who've had to support family members who have passed away because they didn't have life insurance in place and they've had to use up their savings to help cover family expenses. There's all kinds of things that get in the way of our long-term success. So again, the quote is this: the best long-term plan is a series of tightly organized short-term plans. What that means is we need to be on top of things. We need to have a guide, a mentor, an accountability partner in our lives that helps us, at least on a quarterly basis, check in with our financial lives and the goals that we're trying to accomplish, and look on those short-term time frames, how to get organized and stay focused. So these tightly organized short-term plans are what ultimately create long-term success. Now, this goes back to an interesting story that we've often heard. I don't know if everyone has heard this, but it's one of my favorites, and it has to do with air flights. If you fly from Los Angeles to New York, and you're off by only 1 degree, where do you end up? Let's assume it's 1 degree south. You end up in Boston. That's several hundred miles away from New York City. Several hundred. So actually that's incorrect. Boston is north of New York. Forget the geography on that, guys. I may have messed that up, but the point is that you end up several hundred miles away from your intended destination if you stay only 1 degree off. So what are airline pilots doing? And their automated systems, they're constantly course correcting to make sure that the direction that they're headed is actually the correct direction. Think about this as well on a hike up a mountain. If you've ever gone hiking somewhere, we often think, oh, I'm going to beeline it straight from A to B up to the top of this mountain, but it's never that way. It's a zigzag, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth to make sure that we can actually accomplish the end result. Now think about Mount Everest. This is one of the tallest, if not the tallest peak in the world. So it's a great ambition for a few people in the world to achieve climbing that. I watched a series of shows on this topic a couple of years ago, and the few hundred people a year that try to summit that have hired coaches. They spend something like $40,000 to $100,000 to have somebody help them accomplish this task, and to call them out when they're doing dumb things, and to walk them off the emotional and mental ledge when they really want to get to the top, but the weather's changing and their oxygen levels are getting low and they can't think clearly. And so they help them accomplish this great task by mentoring and guiding them, by having been there before, by having seen so many other people's experiences. So a series of tightly organized short-term plans. I want you guys to have that mindset. And then this other quote, the order in which we do things really matters. I thought that aligned perfectly with my system as well. Getting organized and then systemized and then optimized, meaning we tweak and improve the things we have in place. And then the maximization is a skill set we develop for the rest of our lives, how to turn cash into cash flow. Organization always comes first. There is an order of operations. So we need to have our mindset clear. We need to have a vision of our future. We need to then get some familiarity with finance and how finance works, become a student of money. We need to get our financial lives organized, get that chaotic junk drawer of our financial lives into something more organized. And these digital tools that I have a PDF document you can get for free. That's my financial organization toolkit that gives some guidance on how to get your digital files organized. I now have a spreadsheet document I call the Total Wealth Organizer, and this is available as well. This is a paid product, and along with it, you'll get some of these freebies as well. My tracking and planning spreadsheet to help you get those first 2 to 3 to 6 months up to a year worth of tracking handled, so that you know what you're spending on average, and you can then turn the system on that automatically moves money into your checking account, and you live within that. There's some great things that I've come to recognize are very important in order to be the most likely to be successful long term. All right, I think we're going to wrap there, guys. So how do we overcome lifestyle creep? It's really a matter of systemization and clarity of purpose, that it matters to you enough that you're going to make some positive change in your life, that you're going to do some things. Now, I guess I'm not quite done with this episode. I've got a mentor in my life in my health. And this is a man who's been, he's just a year or two younger than me. He's a salesman for a large corporation, and so busy professional. He did missionary service like me. He's a family man. He's a man of faith, a man of God, someone I look up to a lot. And he's been able to maintain a 10% body fat percentage as an adult male. You know, when a lot of us are getting dad bods, he has maintained a leaner physique. And that is a function of some basic principles of health. One of those principles is eat less than your body needs. No more than the equivalent of your caloric expenditure of the day. And so calories in, calories out is the main thing. Just like income versus expense is the main thing for personal finance. In our health, it's calories in, calories out. So if we don't measure that, what do we tend to do? We pick up weight and we end up physically obese. Well, same thing can happen, but financial obesity is debt. If we aren't monitoring our income and expenses well, we end up overspending and we end up fat financially in the form of debt, credit cards, car loans, student loans that we can't pay off, business loans, all these things that we often take on. It's usually the consumer side of that debt, cars and credit cards. Sometimes there's emergency stuff that gets in there, and that's just is what it is. But it's the consumer stuff. If we're not monitoring that, debt ends up taking over our lives, and we think we're saving some of our money in 401k or IRA type plans for the future. But in the end, you don't have enough liquidity to pay off your debt, so you end up financially obese. And so we have to overcome that. We have to have some strong motive to overcome that. What is your motive, guys? What is your motive beyond day-to-day spending? What is a bright future you want to look forward to, whether that's 6 months from now, 3 months from now, or 10 years from now? We sometimes just need a really short 6 to 8 week focus, maybe a 12-week focus to get lean financially to make a few changes, to feel some positive results, and then we can get into the rhythm and the habit of ongoing success. So we need some hacks in our life. We need some systems. We need some mentors. We need some good knowledge to support us in making these good decisions. So I believe in you guys. You're here. If you're listening to this, it's because you're a believer in the same things, that you can be successful financially. And if you already are some level of success, I know I have a lot of clients who have been millionaires and not known it, net worth millionaires and felt poor. You might be a high income earner and not have a lot of wealth developed yet in your life. You may not have assets purchased yet, but you're a high income earner. And oftentimes doctors, for example, come out of school and they become high income earners, or maybe MBA students come out of school and they will go get a job for $150,000 to $200,000 in a big company. Even tradespeople can come in making $80,000 to $150,000 a year as an electrician, or a journeyman, or a welder. There's all kinds of trades and things that make really good income too. And when we have higher incomes, often we're tempted to just spend it all because we don't have a clear plan, a clear purpose. Guys, I want that for you. I want you to have clarity of purpose in your lives. And it can be short-term purposes. It could be that new car, but to do so in a way that's not going to cause you to be in debt long-term, and that's not something that's causing you to not be able to save for your long-term future. I'm going to give you one more kind of catchphrase quote from one of my mentors, and it goes like this: we can have anything we want financially, just not everything. You can have anything you want in life, just not everything. And that causes us to get clear on our priorities and our values. And if you'll do that, if you'll spend a little bit of time doing some of the work, get clear on your vision, to kind of look at your values, maybe have some more proactive conversations with your spouse if you're married, or a good close friend that can be an accountability partner and kind of talk with you about these things. Maybe do some writing exercises, determine what's important to you. And as you do that, you'll be able to align your financial decisions with those priorities and those values, and you'll be less likely to have wasteful spending. You'll keep more of it. You'll start to be able to acquire assets. You'll be able to have funds available that if you do lose your job, it's no big deal. Or if you want to deliberately change jobs or companies, you can bide your time and get the best offers and have an increase to your financial life and have a bright future. All right, guys, thanks for listening. Love you. Thanks for being here. I'm rooting for you. And let me know if this was valuable. Jump into the comments on my YouTube version of this. Share some comments about what was valuable, what you would wish I would have talked more about. If you're liking this content, please share it with your friends and family. Super grateful for those of you who have dropped reviews into the iTunes, which helps more people know that this is available, that it's an interesting podcast, that it's worthwhile content. I want this to be not just information, but practical information. I want to be known as the practical money guy, the guy who helped many people become masters of money because it's so practical and easy to accomplish. I believe that, guys. Money can be easy, it can be fun, and exciting. So I wish you a wonderful rest of your day. Take care. I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wealth Acceleration Podcast. We hope the insights from today's episode help you streamline your finances and grow your wealth stress-free. For show notes from today's episode and more tips on creating a comprehensive wealth-building plan, visit moneymasterycoaching.com. Remember, financial freedom is attainable. Until next time, keep accelerating towards your goals. See you on the next episode.